Hello, my name is Frank Reynolds, and I'm coming to you from White Pine Studios, the New Hampshire Hilltop headquarters of Utter Totality Zoom groups. This video clip and others related to it are posted on the YouTube channel called Opening to Utter Totality. This is a special purpose video for a very limited audience. The purpose of this video is to outline the Opening to Utter Totality Zoom group for people who may be invited to join the group when it forms later in 2023, presumably. We'll have to see when it happens, when it comes together, but tentatively, the group is planned to be formed toward the end of 2023. So presumably you're watching this clip either because you are a prospective member of the Opening to Utter Totality, or to use the acronym OUT, O-U-T, Opening to Utter Totality Zoom group. So either you're a prospective member who's been referred by one of the group organizers, to this clip, or you've just stumbled onto it. If you just stumbled onto it, hopefully I can save you a lot of time by stating at the outset that it will be a total waste of your time to watch it, because there's no contact information, no action step, no product promotion, nothing like that included that would be of interest to someone who is not a prospective member of the group. Nor is this video intended to recruit prospective members from the general public. Prospective members will be individually selected and referred and eventually invited into the group if it's mutually determined that these people would be a good fit for the group. So if you stumbled onto it randomly, nice to see you, and hopefully you'll find something fun in your next clip. As an initial disclaimer, I should alert viewers that I'm going to use some specialized Buddhist terms, particularly Tibetan Buddhist terms, in this clip without elaborating very much, or maybe without elaborating at all on the terms, because there's a presumption that if you're being considered for membership in this Zoom group, you'll have the kind of Buddhist study and practice background, which will give you familiarity with the terms and maybe fairly extensive experience related to them. So I'm not going to elaborate, but if you have questions when you speak with me about participating in the group or speak with other organizers, if you have questions about the terms, please feel free to ask them then, but I'm not going to try to address them initially, mainly in the interest of time, because the you could talk a lot about any one of these little words. So, having said that, I'm going to somewhat back into an outline of the core focus of the OUT Zoom group or groups by explaining the key term in the title of the group, Utter Totality. The most common English translation of the Tibetan term Dzogchen, which is rendered in Sanskrit as Mahā'ati, is great perfection, is the most common translation. Dzogchen means great perfection, Zopa Chempo. I heard many years ago an alternative translation of Dzogchen, Zopa Chempo, as utter totality. And I was smitten with that translation. And so that's why I'm using that term rather than great perfection in the title of the Zoom group. But it's pointing at the same thing, which is Dzogchen Mahā'ati. And in a broad embrace will also include Mahamudra teachings. But so Dzogchen is the general area of focus. And within Dzogchen, the approach will be to immerse ourselves in the well-known precious treasury teachings. I'm trying to hold the one of the volumes in this series up now. The precious treasury teachings of Longchen Rabjam, or Longchenpa, as he's better known. And this is one of the beautiful Padma Publishing translation editions, which is what we'll work from exclusively. It's superb if you're not already familiar with it. Trust me. So we're going to immerse ourselves in these particular written teachings and practices. So I'm going to speak in a couple of minutes about the logistics of group involvement, because Yeah, I think for some prospective members, um, th- there may be obstacles to participation based on these logistics. So I want to let people know what's going to be involved in participating at the beginning, and therefore, if people elect to join and are invited into the group, they know what they're getting into and will be more likely to stay with the group long term. But I'll explain that in a moment. First, I want to talk about um, the overall view or approach of utter totality, Dzogchen, versus all the other schools of Buddhism. Because as you are aware, in the Tibetan tradition, Dzogchen and Mahamudra or Mahamudra are considered to be the apex or pinnacle teachings. Wow. Okay, so the Ferrari, whatever. Uh, but the distinction is that previous teachings are developmental. Keywords are developmental or progressive versus direct, which is Dzogchen, and developmental or progressive is all the rest. So what we're going to be aspiring to is a direct approach. Let me explain that a little bit, even though I'm not generally going to get into elaborating on terms, but I think this initial one is unavoidable. So, developmental or progressive teachings or a path in Buddhism means that just as going along a physical path on a hike, for instance, we start one place and proceed to a destination different than and probably distant from where we started out. So we develop or progress from who we are or perceive ourselves to be at the beginning and who we become or develop into at the end. And the presumption underlying such an approach is that we have potential, but this potential has to be developed in order to manifest, in a nutshell. However, the great perfection, utter totality view, contrary to this, is that we already are fundamentally, in essence, fully, totally, continuously, pervasively enlightened. So we don't have to develop anything. We don't have to do anything. It's not quite that simple because we have to recognize and realize this fundamental purity, totality, great perfection, what have you. So it's a little bit of a, I suppose, a catch-22 in saying that this is direct rather than developmental, because it isn't like a finger snap or a secret sauce that anybody can just pour on us and voila, we're there, we're here, we're awake. No. But anyway, that's the idea, direct versus developmental approach. And therefore, that's what, in saturating ourselves in these teachings from Longchenpa, that's what we're oriented toward, is teachings and practice supporting awakened awareness in this way. So, what exactly taking a direct as opposed to developmental approach to experiencing awakened awareness means is to be discovered through the teachings and the group process. So I'll tell you later what it means, or I won't have to tell you if you participate in the group, but I can't do anything more than finger paint initially, so that's what I've tried to do. I can be a little more specific about how the group process is going to work and what the expectations for participation are. Now, generally, when I hear about a Dharma Zoom group that has a particular topical focus, for example, maybe it's going to take up a particular teacher or teachings or whatever. I assume that the group will come together, go through presentations about the related material, either written and or direct spoken presentations, teachings, and then get done with all that and then disband. So that maybe there's 10, 20 sessions, whatever, and that's that. The opening to Utter Totality Zoom group concept is different than that, in that the intention is that the group will be an ongoing source of support longer term, and will be, first of all, small and intimate in size, so that probably will limit the size to 12 or 15 members, maybe fewer, just depending on, as we solicit people as prospective members, when it feels like we've got a good chemistry and cohort for a group, then that group will start. Group can begin, but it's not going to be hundreds of people, stadium seating, so that no one participant, yeah, everybody is passive and no one participant has more than a brief opportunity to say anything or ask a question. This is small, intimate, ongoing dialogue. Initially, for the first few sessions, which will be scheduled every 2 weeks, bi-weekly, for probably 2 hours each session in the evenings Eastern time, I'm presuming. The so the groups will meet for that degree of frequency, and there will be a reading assignment for each particular segment or meeting of the group. The expectation will be a quite firm expectation that to be in good standing as a participant of this group, you will thoroughly read each assignment in advance of the meeting. And moreover, that you will read these assignments, at least initially, in a specialized way, which is that you will read them individually, aloud, while on a meditation cushion or whatever seat you typically use in order to meditate. So the notion of reading aloud and the expectation requirement that we read these teachings aloud is in order to increase the likelihood that what Longchenpa says will penetrate or nail right into our marrow, or anyway, bore down eventually into our marrow. And so that's not a casual requirement. That is an ongoing expectation of the group. If you haven't done this before, I encourage you to try it, even if you don't end up in the group, because I think you will like it in a case where you're working with some really powerful Dharma material. In any case, the second point about this is that as far as doing the assignments, doing your homework, I've participated in Dharma study groups with very, very bright, well-read, experienced practitioners where it's somewhat hit or miss with at least some of the practitioners as to whether they did the reading assignment for any given group before the related meeting of the group. And then I've found that oftentimes, if the facilitators or organizers of the group are not assured that the participants have read the assigned material, they end up virtually walking through the entire assignment in the live group, the Zoom group. That strikes me as a poor use of time and a wasting of opportunity for meaningful dialogue about the teachings. So if someone were to join an opening to Utter Totality Zoom group and then start making excuses why he or she didn't get to the reading that particular week, that person would not be viable for the group, and basically would get called, because it's not going to work, particularly with a small group, if we can't presume that everyone has done the reading. And that way, if we've all really absorbed the reading for a given meeting, it's not necessary to plod through the same material again in the meeting itself. We can be much more creative in terms of what we take up or don't take up in the meeting, because there's no need to rehash the material for the benefit of those who didn't get around to doing their homework. So to continue, extend this discussion of the logistics of the opening to Utter Totality Zoom group a little bit. The next thing I want to mention is that the group itself will have no formal Tibetan Buddhist lineage affiliation, nor any teacher, spiritual teacher, Buddhist teacher, in the formal authorized sense of that term. The organizers of the group are facilitators, not teachers, in the traditional sense of the term. The teacher is Longchenpa, and if you know anything about the precious treasury, excuse me, teachings and how they're regarded, Patrul Rinpoche, a great esteemed teacher in his own right, came later than Longchenpa, said that Longchenpa's words are the expression of the Dharmakaya itself, which is just about the highest praise I've ever heard for a Buddhist teacher. And therefore, we're all set, even though we don't have Longchenpa alive today, because he was born and died in the 1300s, 700 years ago, roughly. We do have potentially access to his living mind and awareness. if that's not too mystical for you. And therefore, Longchenpa is the teacher. The organizers of this group are facilitators. And the other opportunity that not attaching to a single teacher or having one member of the group be the quote teacher unquote is that we will be able to over time revolve facilitation of the Zoom group among the members. Probably for the first few sessions, the organizers of the group will handle the facilitation, and then we'll start to transfer it around thereafter. We'll somewhat have to play this by ear because this group is just forming, and we'll know more the best way to go about this after a pilot group or two have run. So best guess initially, but the intention is to revolve facilitation. That also provides the opportunity down the line for members of, say, the pilot group of 12 or 15 participants to branch out and form their own opening to utter totality Zoom groups under certain guidelines, of course. Now, what I mean by this, by guidelines, is that the name opening to utter totality Zoom groups is a registered trademark, which it might seem a little secular for a spiritual group, but the point of trademarking the name of the group is this notion that if the group spawns, proliferates, somebody could find out very easily the methodology that we're using and knock it off with a different kind of group that basically follows the same parameters. And that's fine. In fact, I would certainly welcome people being inspired to do that. However, the person who creates such a group can't call it opening to utter totality. I want the group name to mean something and give the assurance and consistency that, say, a good brand of product gives you, that that you're getting the genuine article, and that it means something and allows people to relax into it. Okay, so I want to now try to bring this introduction to opening to Utter Totality Zoom groups to a close by saying that in a perfect world, pure and perfect world, which Dzogchen tells us that we are actually in, but in a perfect world, if you've been referred to this clip, in order that you can consider whether you want to be invited to participate in the Zoom group. In a perfect world, anybody who went through that process, watched the clip, and wanted to be considered for the group could be accommodated and included in the group when it forms. We're going very slowly and carefully in terms of who we consider for the group, because the group will be so small that the chemistry will be very important. However, and we probably will only start with one group, maybe two, running on alternate weeks. But the idea, it fundamentally is to let this kind of Zoom group grow organically, rather than to try to push it or set some sort of arbitrary participation level goal or anything like that. To let it grow organically. And therefore, there may be somewhat of a bottleneck initially in terms of greater interest than we have slots available. I doubt very much that people will be clamoring to be admitted to this Zoom group. And I don't want to tease people by having them learn about the group and say, yes, I want in, and then having to tell them, well, I'm sorry, we don't have any space currently available. However, realistically, people can, once they're sent links, they can copy the link to friends. And so let's say we handpick only 10 people as prospective participants, and then one by one let's say all 10 elect to come in or whatever, and then we can just stop asking people to consider membership. But we can't really control that with links, and we may have a friend of someone we initially invite contact us and ask if they could be considered, and so on. So we just have to see how it goes as to whether we'll be able to accommodate initially everyone who expresses interest with participation. And I'll ask you to please bear with us and say that we will communicate as fully and forthcomingly, timely, and honestly as we can, so that you know what's going on. But despite best intentions, this may end up being somewhat of a tease, in that we tell you about the group, get your interest, and then can't open space for you initially. But so please bear with us, and we'll be in touch about that. So I guess that's it for the time being, and I look forward to speaking with you about participation in these Zoom groups, and also to actually being in a group with you before too terribly long. So thank you very much for your time and attention. I'm signing off now from White Pine Studios, hilltop location in the Upper Valley of New Hampshire, and wishing you great good fortune. Goodbye.